Greetings, greetings. This is Dr. Jonathan Ellerby live again with another 12 at 12. And today we are talking about the power of letting go in the context of transforming relationships and moving forward. We will also be looking at this through the lens of the 3 channels of self. So, hopefully it's going to be helpful. Why don't we take a breath and first connect with the physical experience of letting go as we slow down, get centered, and breathe in slowly and fully. A real big, long, slow, full inhale. Then hold it a moment. Feel the impulse to release. And then when you're ready, through your mouth, as though through a straw, breathing out really long and slowly. And we're going to do this a couple more times just to help you get settled in the middle of your day and to be ready to explore and relate to something new. So again, just keeping the big inhale, then hold it a moment and really focus on the energy of letting go. Breathing out and just sort of contemplating, imagining what if every exhale were more than just a breath out, but a release of all manner of toxins. The toxins that our lungs are capable of releasing, the toxins of our minds, the toxins of our hearts. So breathing out with the conscious contemplation of letting go and the affirmation of its importance. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And a lot of you know this model from me. It's really in many ways the basis of most of my work and really how I see the universe and teach. The idea, very quickly, since most of you have seen this, is that the human being is really comprised of 3 modes, 3 levels, 3 channels, you might say. So 3 modes of perception, 3 identities, 3 ways of relating to the world. The conditional is typically what people think of inaccurately, but think of as the ego, like the egotistical self, self-importance, formed from the outside in, very reactive, and when unconscious, very shallow. But typically comprises most of our life. It's the conditioned self. The second one, the essential self, which speaks to the true self, authenticity, the soul, that kind of stuff. And then finally, the universal, which is that neutral place within each of us that is very much the same no matter who we are. It's the place of spirit, oneness, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But as we look at this, what we're struck by is the significance of letting go in order to move from one level to the next and moving back up in reverse. So any transition of level in your consciousness, in your daily life, requires some kind of letting go. The more conscientious you can be about that, the more easily you can change gears. It's just kind of like driving a car or changing channels on the TV. So again, anytime you want to shift consciousness in a relationship, at work, or in your relationship to yourself and something in your life, be very, very clear that active, intentional letting go is a part of any shift of levels. Now, more than that, the success of each level also involves letting go. So not just changing levels, but residing on levels, and each one has its own different quality. So let's get into it. Typically, most of our stress and distress comes from over-identification with the conditional self and the unwillingness to let go of wanting things to be the way we want them to be. In fact, I like to think of stress as the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And so the more you can let go of your attachment to where you want to be, the more you can bring these two visions together. So to move from the conditional self to the essential self requires letting go of our conditioning, letting go of our programming, our scripts, our culture, and exploring and investigating who we feel we are essentially, which may include aspects of our culture, our family, our work, and so on. But the difference is, as you move from conditional to essential, letting go becomes a different game. Okay, so let's just be really clear. When you're in the conditional self, you're typically going to experience your highest levels of stress and distress because the conditional self is very dependent on what it wants and a kind of conditional reality. All be well when these things happen. So, one, if your conditional self is aligned with your true self, that's fine. Your work, your relationships, your parenting, your ideas about the world. But if you're going to find any peace of mind while you're there, you have to hold things lightly. So that's kind of the idea, the lesson, the meditation, which is, I want my kids to clean up. I want my kids to make their own lunch. I want my partner to be more responsive to this or that. Fair enough. You're allowed all those things. But if you don't like the stress and imbalance that eats away at your body, heart, and mind, then you want to hold those things lightly with a great degree of curiosity, flexibility, and tolerance. But if you want to move out of the conditional self because it's not reflecting the essence, and you just want to move into a more authentic way of being, then there's a different kind of letting go that happens, and that's about letting go of expectations of others. You see, the first letting go in the conditional self is about you letting go of your expectations of others. But if we're going to move from the conditional to the essential, then you have to give up the importance of others and their expectations of you. See how that's different? So that means that if you are embarking on a new job, a new relationship, a new behavior, a new way of being, you must stay very centered in the feeling and affirmation of the truth and beauty and power of your true self, and release or let go daily, hourly, minute by minute, that impulse to please, to fix, to be agreed with. So finding peace in the true self is about letting go of the conditions we've accepted and letting go of other people's approval and opinion. Now, it doesn't mean that we won't have some measure of conditional self and that we won't want to have pleasing relationships with people. In other words, relationships that feel good. That's true. But no longer pleasing in the sense of compromising true self for the happiness or well-being of another. Okay? Now that we're talking about sustaining, staying in the true self, there's a different kind of letting go that happens in there. Okay? Letting go inside the conditional self, letting go transitioning to the essential self, and now we're in the essential self. You're being true to yourself, and what we must release, believe it or not, is our attachment to authenticity looking the way we want it to look. Now, it's not a very different kind of letting go than the first. It's about non-attachment, okay? But it's a different focus. Maybe you find your passion in life. Maybe you find your preference in life. But this is where we start moving into more of an attitude of surrender, which sort of brings us closer to that third level, which means put your heart on the job of your dreams, set your mind on the relationship of your dreams, make decisions one at a time that reflect the essence, truth, authenticity of who you are to the greatest degree possible. And when things don't work out, be curious. Let it go. Because ultimately, the real fulfillment of the true self lies not in creating a world that looks like you. It lies in the power of integrity. So that's the big lesson for letting go and the true self. It's understanding that the true self is about decisions and communication that are congruent, an inner balance, an inner congruence. It's not about getting what you want. And let me tell you, I know lots of people that have worked on the law of attraction and manifestation and living from the soul, only to create a very beautiful, very positive, very nurturing, soulful life that they absolutely are terrified of losing or are enraged if it's threatened. See how that's weird? So you find your true self, but then you become attached to that. So the lesson here is finding the truth self is not about it being fully manifested. It is about it being fully realized and acted upon, which of course most of the time will lead to manifestation, but maybe not always. Maybe there's going to be a protest that blocks your way. Maybe there's going to be the collapse of a company that changes your goal. Maybe there's going to be a pandemic that keeps you at home. We don't know what's going to happen, but we have to be careful that we don't fall into despair and self-judgment if ownership of the true self isn't transformed into a material reality immediately. The final step of letting go that we're going to talk about and wrap up in just a minute is that even the true self itself, must be held lightly and ultimately released if we are going to have the deepest experiences of oneness consciousness, pure awareness, unity with God, whatever you want to call it. Because when you go into those places of self, what you discover is that the true self isn't allowed to come with you. In other words, the deeper we go within, the less personal it becomes. Isn't that interesting? So you kind of go from the conditional level that takes things personally to the true self that expresses things in the most personal way you can, and then into the universal or essential self, which basically knows that anything that is not the one thing, God, energy, spirit, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, is temporary. And so we let go of ourselves to drop down into that final level. And then how do we stay there? Interesting. Probably the most important thing you want to let go of whenever you're in a moment of approaching or touching into the divine center, that peaceful, universal, perennial place of calm, is your mind. It's really your emotions and your mind, but more than anything, your thinking world is not really welcome, nor is your emotional chaos. When you are approaching a point of stability, of stillness, of interconnection, the non-dual place within, the deepest place within you, you got to let go of all the analyzing, planning, projecting, vetting. It doesn't work there. We go into a passive place of receiving, listening, learning, being curious. We let go of all active elements, save only those that keep us connected with stillness, silence, and centeredness. So, it's a lot in a very short space of time. I hope it's helpful for you. If so, pass it on. Bottom line is, wherever we want greater peace, be consciously aware of the need to let go. And then explore this conversation and ask yourself more specifically, what do I need to let go of? Anyway, I'm so glad that you joined me, whether you're watching this live or recorded. I hope you take care. If you'd like to know any more about what I'm doing or who I am, you can go to jonathanellerby.com. Otherwise, take care of each other, and I will see you soon. Hey, Carrie. Hey, Katie. Bye-bye.